Hey, friars. Okay, so yeah, I have another as of yet unuploaded video about the concept of live actors, and I thought I'd just weigh in on something very quickly in like the greater crypto market here. So, full disclosure, I am a Filecoin bag holder. I was lucky enough to be involved in the ICO, which was yeah, a combination of luck and lots of sweet talking. Actually, getting on that sale was actually quite difficult. Anyway, yeah, so I was one of the early investors in that. Yeah, so basically, there's a lot of like criticism about how Filecoin works and and what they did, and it's and a whole bunch of people are very unhappy about all kinds of stuff. So essentially, it sort of like boils down to the fact that Filecoin, for those of you who don't know, it's a file distribution network where essentially by proving that you have space available for a certain amount of time, you can earn some file coins. By taking up deals where people actually store stuff in that space that you've made available, you can make some money. And essentially where the proof of work concept in Bitcoin has caused a massive acceleration in the technology behind SHA-256. Here, the idea is that they take that same economic driving force and then they basically punch a hole in storage, limitations, and you get a crap load of storage, right? So they're not the only project doing this, right? So the reason that I specifically liked, that I specifically still like Filecoin, is that it's built by Protocol Labs, which is headed by Juan Bennett. So I met Juan at DevCon 2 way back in the day, and I must say he is quite a gangster character. Actually, he's very how can I say? I don't know what the right word is, but sort of like almost he's a very outgoing and jovial computer scientist. So Juan basically wrote the IPFS white paper and the IPFS protocol. Yeah, and I mean IPFS is, I mean even back then it was an absolute revolution. I mean IPFS is such a cool technology. If you guys don't know about IPFS, go check it out. But anyway, I mean IPFS is what a lot of the decentralized web stuff is built on, right? And Filecoin sort of like takes what they've learned and adds an economic component to that. So um, so yeah, but it does also, to my knowledge, exist independently of IPFS. But anyway, so a bunch of the mechanisms inside of Filecoin, are not functioning quite as great as they had hoped. One of the big things is that for you to actually store someone else's data, you have to stake Filecoin, right? So, but for you to actually be able to stake the Filecoin, you have to have the Filecoin, and for a certain amount of storage, you have a certain minimum stake that you're supposed to put out there. So one of the complaints, and this is actually like I say complaint instead of problem. This is actually what it might have been. It might have been, a little bit of a, misaligned incentives issue as well, just in terms of people having a certain, financial reason to want to be upset about this versus a real practical reason. But anyway, so the idea is that lots of these miners who were involved in the testnet acquired a lot of storage. And the problem is now they can't afford enough stake to actually like bond their storage and yeah, and basically provide service to the network. Now the thing is, at the moment, first of all, that doesn't look like it's a train smash for the network as a whole because there isn't enough demand yet. I do think that there will be an incredible amount of demand for Filecoin, but there isn't enough demand right now, right? So it's not necessarily that critical from a network-wide perspective, although it might be annoying and frustrating and maybe even loss-making on the miner side, right? But anyway, so a whole bunch of people are like, yeah, this thing is too complicated and they should have tested this, and why didn't they test this, and yeah, it's gonna fail, and yada 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 yada. Anyway, I mean, the stuff is tiring. Honestly, like it is tiring. Like if I can, this is the number one um, positive thing I've learned from being in crypto now for how long has it been? I heard about Bitcoin in the December 2010. Now I heard about it in 2009, and then I shut it down. Um, I was like, no, that'll never work. Yeah, let me tell this story quickly. I mean, it illustrates the point I'm trying to make, and then I'll give you the core learning, in my opinion, as to evaluating these networks for success or failure. Right. So, yeah, so basically in 2009, me and my buddy Andrew Crooks, hey Andrew, if you're watching this, hope you're enjoying New Zealand. But basically, me and him were, no, sorry, Australia. My apologies. You're one of those two. I think maybe you're in Australia now. But anyway, basically, yeah, he was telling me about a Slashdot article that he had read, which was the first press article about Bitcoin, about this currency that works on proof of work. And at that stage, I was massively like into sound money and gold and silver investments and stuff like that. And then I was like, yeah, it sounds cool, but it'll never work because, what does it matter if you have to spend a lot of energy to create some rare certificate? You'll just copy it infinitely and then there you go. You can't do anything with it beyond that point. You'll just make it unscarce again. So me and him, and I could see he was a little like, oh man, yeah, it seemed like a cool idea, but that's a valid objection. And I was like, yeah, that's not gonna work. Anyway, needless to say, I mean, my ignorance at that stage, combined with my arrogance, my ignorance wasn't the problem. My arrogance and my lack of curiosity, I would say those were the big problems, basically. They combined into me shooting down what was at that stage, I mean, Bitcoin was so cheap that it didn't have a price. I think this was before the Bitcoin pizza day, so that's how much upside my combination of ignorance and arrogance cost me, right? I mean, if you're arrogant about your ignorance, that's near fatal, it seems, right? I mean, at least it cuts off your future upside to a large degree. But anyway, so fast forward a few years. So needless to say, like I had some Bitcoins in the 2011 rally, rode that up a little bit, down a little bit. And by 2013, when it started rallying again, I was like, now I am a believer. I will just acquire as much of this stuff as I can, and I will just keep quiet, and I'll just, at least I'll stop complaining, and I'll just acquire. And then similar thing with Ethereum. I mean, when that came along, it was like, looks like a pretty interesting idea. Let me take some of my Bitcoins and chuck it at this thing. At the same period of time, some other friends of mine, very smart people, were debating with one another, like, should they invest in this thing? And the one guy had this whole argument about, no, he thinks it'll dump and he'll be able to buy like below the ICO price. Ethereum ended up never going lower than 3x the Bitcoin denominated ICO price. It did very, very well. And the other guy, to this day, I spoke to him yesterday, I think. He's still like, yeah, if he'd only listened to me, like things would be very different. But anyway, I mean, you live, you learn. But the bottom line is like, don't be arrogant and don't think why the situation won't work, right? So let's take Filecoin's thing, for instance, right? In my view, for one of these networks to actually succeed, what you need participants. That's almost it, right? You need participants. They need to be solving a problem that needs to be solved. Those participants, basically, they need the capacity to respond to problems and they need the opportunity to respond to problems, right? So to give you an idea, let's say, for instance, you were watching a reality TV show and people were like, lined up in different teams and stuff. And you as the spectator could see some of the obstacles and the team maybe couldn't, right? So the team might have a basic strategy going into the situation, and sort of like you with your, with your more objective view might go, well, that's not going to work, because there's an obstacle and they didn't see that. And like their thing doesn't include that. Problem is just that they get to the obstacle and they root around it, right? So if you have intelligent participants and they can root around it, they want to root around it, so they've got a reason to root around it, and they have the opportunity to root around it, so it's not a completely insurmountable problem for them to change things to. And guess what? They will. They will. And that's really what you're looking for in any project in this space, basically, is you're looking like, are they solving a valuable problem? Is it something that stirs up emotion? Can they gather more people to their cause? And then the second thing is like, do they have a lot of people in their cause? And then the next thing would be, those people in their cause, can they actually change the situation that they're in, right? So with Filecoin, for instance, with that problem I was speaking about earlier with the, with the miners not having enough Filecoin, part of the problem there was that the Filecoins that they mine vest over 6 months. So now they've already hard forked the protocol once, and they've basically said that, okay, well, if you mine, you get 25% of your coins immediately. Seems like the problem is solved now, at least that problem. Now, I mean, there's a myriad of other objections that people have, but the bottom line is they have live actors. They've got a seriously inspiring problem, which is like, take the economic forces behind, that caused Bitcoin to like pull SHA 256, evaluation to where it is now. and rather focus that energy on creating a hell of a lot of decentralized storage. I mean, that's a very inspiring thing. They've also deployed their capital pretty effectively, in my opinion. I happen to have noticed that they sold their pretty much their whole Ether supply at the bottom of something like $80. But anyway, I mean that's neither here nor there. They have, in the meanwhile, they've partnered with several people to actually make relevant dApps on Filecoin. You go check out if you Google Filecoin and Slate, you'll see one of the examples there is pretty cool. Yeah, and I mean they'll root around it. And guys, my general encouragement is just like go look at projects that have a real problem that they want to solve, something inspiring, something that has an economic incentive attached to it for more people to join and go solve the problem, or whether or not they have the opportunity. Now, the big issue that I have with Bitcoin is that due to how the commit rights work, people are basically prevented from, fixing the stuff that goes wrong with Bitcoin. This is like the major reason why I'm no longer like very bullish on Bitcoin. Is essentially Valdemar van der Laan and the guys at Blockstream determine what really makes it into the reference implementation of Bitcoin. And they sort of like they've cornered that little market for themselves, and they keep saying, yeah, no one like runs Bitcoin, no one. But I tell you now, like if Valdemar van der Laan, shifted the narrative to a degree, okay, I must say even he might not be successful at this stage, but I mean, yeah, they need to actually like start moving a bit faster, and actually like rooting around the problems. For me to really go that, okay, well, this is still a network that can move fast enough to actually catch up to Ethereum. That's my little rant for today.